So looking at the overall consolidated plan goals, and the consolidated plan is that umbrella plan that we're working with the annual action plan through, we're able to add 3 new goals to check it off the list if this 2018 annual action plan is approved. And that includes energy efficiency, employment training, financial assistance for small businesses, and then we're going to be greatly expanding homelessness prevention. So what we're going to do, assuming the approval, is submit the annual action plan by August 10th through the IDIS system in HUD, and then approximately 60 days later, we should be receiving a letter from HUD with the funding approval. So, are there any questions or any feedback?
Council have any questions at this time on the CDBG funding? Mr. Teeter? No?
Brian, is this the program that we were talking about maybe adding a person-demand telephones on? Or was that...
I'm not sure I understand which project you're talking about.
well, I know one time we talked about maybe bringing someone in just to answer questions for the public and for the telephone for...
Oh.
Yeah.
That is possible. In fact, we met last week. The task force met last week, and CDBG is a possible funding source. We don't think we would be ready in 19 necessarily, but that's possible.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the staff from council? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council on this matter? Seeing no one, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. I'm open for a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2018-14. Mr. Teeter.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2018-14.
Thank you. Councilwoman Frank.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2018-14. Is there any discussion from council? Seeing none, would the attorney please read the title?
Resolution 2018-14, 2018 CDBG Annual Action Plan Adoption and Resolution to submit to HUD.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. We have ordinances on first reading. Ordinance 2174. Is there anyone on council that has any questions regarding this ordinance? Seeing none. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to come forward and address the council on the matter of ordinance 2174? Seeing none. Is there a motion? Mr. Huseman.
Motion to approve ordinance 2174.
Thank you. Mr. Teeter.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Will the city attorney please read the title?
Ordinance 2174, an ordinance amending the 2018 budget of the City of Commerce City, Colorado by the recognition of the Tony Gramscis Youth Services Grant Funds in the amount of $53,774 for the support of the Youth EPIC program and the authorization of the expenditure thereof.
Thank you. I'll ask for a roll call vote. For the record, ordinance 2174 is introduced unanimously by the City Council with one abstention. Now we move to ordinance 2175. Does there anyone on council have any questions regarding this ordinance? Seeing none. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to come forward and address the council on this matter? Seeing none. I'm open for a motion. Mr. Teeter.
I'd like to introduce ordinance 2175. Council is seated.
Thank you. Councilwoman Frank.
Second.
All right. City Attorney, please read that title.
Ordinance 2175, an ordinance amending Section 1-3003A of the Commerce City Revised Municipal Code to reduce to 364 days the maximum potential term for imprisonment for misdemeanors under the Commerce City Revised Municipal Code.
Thank you. I'll ask for a roll call vote. For the record, ordinance 2175 is introduced unanimously by the City Council this evening with one abstention. All right, next we move into presentations. We have a presentation from E470 Authority. Will the representative please come forward, introduce yourself, and we'll let you make your presentation. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for having us. I'm just hoping there was some IT support here.
You got a whole 4 guys right down there.
All right. Surely they can
Yeah,
help
of course.
me, right?
They should be able to take care of it.
Well, good evening. Thanks for having me. My name is Cheryl Machado. I am a communications consultant for E470. Several of you have taken part or have been a guest when I've done this presentation. Mayor Ford, Council Member Douglas is actually a voting member on our board, so this will be very familiar content for him. But we really, as part of the educational campaign, recognized tolling is a big story in Colorado as CDOT is looking at mobility as a solution and an option. And E470 has been offering tolling and, thank you, mobility and solutions for quite some time here in Colorado. So we wanted to be able to bring this conversation to the council if you have members in your constituency that have questions and just start a larger conversation. This is, 15, 20 minutes tops. I want to leave time for questions and really just start a dialogue about tolling in Colorado, because I think if we turn on the news and we see what's going on, it's going to become more and more familiar across the state. So with that, let's just get through this and leave some time for questions. So again, a mobility solution, there's confusion in the marketplace about who is E470. So I want to share a little bit of background about who we are as a tolling authority, and then how we are partnering with other transportation partners throughout Colorado. If you see, I feel like I'm in court. I really didn't do anything, I promise. If you see the logos across the border, those are our tolling partners throughout Colorado. So Northwest Parkway, CDOT, HPTE, so a little bit of a lesson there. HPTE, for those that don't know, is the innovative leg of CDOT, but it is still obviously part of CDOT. They're trying to find innovative solutions for mobility throughout Colorado with CDOT. Express Lanes is the brand that CDOT uses with HPTE for their managed lanes. Plenary Group is actually how we have now US 36 is paved and open for business about 50 years ahead of schedule. They were the concessionaire for CDOT on US 36. So all of these tolling partners, we are all synergistically connected. And so I want to share a little bit of the story on how that works. Just a little bit of background on E470. We are the 47-mile all-electric toll road. We opened back in 1991, the very first segment. 2003, we opened segment 4. Does this have a pointer on it? Is it the red button? Oh, maybe. Or not. That's okay. Is it? Okay, here we go. Oh, I think I found it. The purple... Well, I had it. The purple, the eastern quarter is the purple E470 eastern beltway around basically the city. We are user financed. We do not receive any local, state, or federal funds to operate our highway. So a little bit of a history lesson there on how we actually came about. In Douglas County, you'll see all of the jurisdictions where we are. We started in Douglas County and we just kept growing. We went into Aurora. We're in Commerce City, Thornton, and expanding all the way up on the north end of I-25. How are we governed? We are actually a political subdivision of the state. We're governed by Public Highway Authority law and our board of directors. We have 8 voting members: Adams, Arapahoe, Douglas, Aurora, Brighton, Commerce City, Parker, and Thornton. And we have 8 non-voting members. That includes agencies such as CDOT, such as RTD, the Regional Council of Governments, DRCOG, Lone Tree, Greeley, Weld County, stretching all the way across the state. We have interested parties that do not have a vote, but they have a very large seat at the table for conversation. Several of them are on our committees, so we obviously utilize all of the resources throughout the jurisdictions that we serve in and throughout the state. We are paid for by a bond debt. We actually have a $1.5 billion bond debt. We pay off annually about $100 million. Once that is paid off in full, we'll have paid about $2.7 billion back in that bond. The good news is we're ahead of schedule. In 2041, we're looking at some opportunities hopefully before then to get ahead of that debt, but it should be paid off in 2041. I'll answer the question now. The tolls will not go away in 2041, in case you were going to ask that question. I get it a lot. That is when our perpetual maintenance fund kicks in through 2076. So if we're all still around in 2076, there might be an opportunity then. The tolls might go away, but we're not seeing anything before that. That perpetual maintenance fund guarantees the integrity of the roadway, snow removal, continued expansion, improvement, reliability, and taking care of the roadway. The law enforcement that you see out on the road, we contract with State Patrol, so that will kick in through 2076. Just a real quick snapshot. So how do we allocate the revenue? Last year, our revenues were about $250 million. Debt repayment takes on about 40% of that, and then you'll see kind of how the pie chart breaks down. Reserves for future E-470 reinvestment. We have required reserves as part of the bond repayment schedule, operating expenses, and then capital programs. We did not, we just passed in our board in, I want to say, 2 months ago? Does that sound right? 2 months ago. We actually are not raising tolls for the next 3 years, so they are frozen for the time, and that went into effect on January 1st. The express toll rate actually is dropping at Toll Plaza C by a quarter, and that is between I-70 and Pena Boulevard. The license plate toll, however, and I tell this long story just to kind of get the point across, if you have a rental car, if you have people coming into town that are going to be using a license plate toll, they pay a higher premium. And because of that, there is obviously resources allocated to collecting that license plate. When somebody with an out-of-state plate or someone that is not registered as an express toll user uses the highway, the gantries, the cameras pick up the license plate. We cross-reference that with the DMV. So we send a bill. Maybe you're in town, maybe you're out of town, maybe it got thrown out because you weren't looking for a bill. So now we're going to send a second bill. After we have, of course, verified that license plate tag with the owner, with the DMV, then we send the bill out. Then we send a second bill, a third bill. So we're up to about $8 to collect a $1.25 toll that most times and often we do not collect. So there is a lot of resources that are allocated for license plate toll. We would like to convert everybody to express toll. It's a much easier process, but we do honor the license plate tolls. If you have a license plate toll on your bill, you can call and convert, and customer service will gladly give you not the license plate toll, but the express toll fee if you get caught on the license plate. What are we doing with all of the toll revenue that we are working to improve the highway? We reinvest back. Last year, we had about 200 incidents. Had we not had cable barriers, that would have resulted in a potential head-on collision as the cars entered the other lane. So the cable barrier is a safety mechanism. We now have that on the entire 47 beltway, 47 miles of the beltway. Deer fence installation, wrong-way driver protection, the technology upgrades. I think I always point out safety because it's a safe, reliable journey. When people are paying a toll, they have a level of service that they've come to expect when they're using a toll road. So the safety mechanisms that are in place, if someone were to get on the ramp going the wrong direction, the technology actually dispatches to our traffic control center where the State Patrol is immediately dispatched, so we are on that car within a matter of seconds. So there's a lot of behind-the-scenes integration with technology and software that people aren't seeing. And then, of course, the roadway maintenance. We have great pride in our roads. We don't have potholes. We take care of widening as it needs to be addressed and improvements along the way. Recent initiatives, we completed the $90 million road widening project between Quincy and Parker Road. We're going to continue with road widening. I'll get to that slide in just a second. The temporary tag initiative, this was, we were just talking about this with law enforcement prior to this initiative that E470 was behind. If you were, remember when you purchase a car and they take a Sharpie and they write a license plate and it wasn't very legible? We were behind the initiative to actually get the temporary tag where it's blocky, it's printed out. As law enforcement now comes up on a car, they can run that tag and know what they're walking up to. So that was part of the initiative, was for the safety with law enforcement, and it also helps with our readers. The gantry cameras can only work so quick, and if it's not legible, it made it much more difficult. We recently removed the vehicle registration fee in Adams, Arapahoe, and Douglas County. That will go into effect in September of this year. The removal of the highway expansion fee. We're working with CDOT on autonomous vehicles and RoadX. So we're always working to improve that vision, improve the journey, and the reliability on the road. Looking ahead, we're looking at the level of service study, continued widening, continued maintenance, accommodating growth in the corridor. We just approved in the last 6 months the $1.8 billion in capital infrastructure and replacements that will go through 2040. And we're looking at now, how do we determine where those improvements should be prioritized? And there's a means and a method to that. This is just a quick glimpse at that, but roughly the new interchanges, 88th, 112th, 38th, and 48th. As we need new trail, bridge deck replacements, pavement overlays, there's money allocated for those types of capital improvements. And then the renewal and replace, that's general ongoing road and facility maintenance, as well as the technology upgrades. I love this slide if I've got time to just spend a minute on this one, because I think it tells a great story. If you look at the growth projections now, on the south end of the tollway, we're at about 52,000 vehicles a day. By the year 2040, and this was a traffic projection study conducted by an outside consulting firm. This was not our own. Let's throw some numbers on it and see if it sticks. This was conducted, and I think it's interesting to see what's happening on this side, up on the north end. Right now, we're at about 31,000 vehicles a day. By 2040, we'll be roughly where we are today on the south end. So I think it's important that as we prioritize where the growth happens and where the widenings take place, we look at the demands and the traffic and the projections. The employment forecast is good on E470. If you compare it to Denver, in the next 20 years, our employment will be at about 29% in Denver, 44% on the corridor. Look at what happened with Amazon right there at E470 and I-70. I mean, it's when they first opened this road back in 1991, nobody thought anybody would ever use it. We have over 1.6 million transponders in the state of Colorado. Some houses, I know mine, have 3 and 4. So people are using this as a mobility option. It is a choice road. You only pay if you use the road. I think the population is also interesting to point out. So again, it's interesting to see where we're going to be by the year 2040 with the vehicles using this as an option. Level of service, I love this slide because it really exemplifies how we manage congestion on the highway. When we get to a level C on our highways, a level F, I always pick on CDOT, but they're used to it. I-25, the mousetrap, 5 o'clock, 6th Avenue and I-25, that is F. It's failing. They know it. I'm not saying anything they don't already recognize. But that level of F service is when there is a forced flow, your volumes are over capacity, and you have a breakdown in that traffic flow. When you're driving out to Lyman, free flow traffic, you're at an A, you're moving. When we get to a C at E470, that's when we look at expanding the roadways and making improvements. That's what happened in Douglas County between Parker Road and Quincy. We were going to be at a C by the year 2020, so they went ahead and did the road widening. They self-funded the $90 million project. They're going to be doing the exact same thing. We're picking up right where we left off at Quincy, going all the way up to I-70. So this is kind of the vision that they have. They're going to grade it out for 4 lanes in each direction. However, they will only be adding a 3rd lane in each direction with this part of the project. We'll widen 14 bridges. We're going to widen the Toll Plaza B and include a trail in the scope of work. So we're actually in the design phase right now. We'll move into construction next year with the completion of 2020 for this section of widening. So you can see the trend is it's just going to continue to offer you that improved level of service that you continue. When people are paying a toll, they expect to be able to get to the airport on time, home on time, wherever it is your destination is taking you. It's a reliable, safe journey, and we're going to keep doing that. The economic impact study that we're looking at here, I could spend a day on the slide, but I know you guys don't want to stay here all night. So the valuation along the corridor is at $38.4 billion right now. If you look at the jobs created, there's 21,000 households that are dependent on it. The people that buy houses out there now, they understand they have to pay a toll to use the roadway to get out of their house, to get to their children's school, to get to their jobs. So it's become more of an appetite of this is how we manage growth. I can get to the tech center in 6 minutes if I use the tollway, versus if I come up through Castle Rock and I-25, it's a 38-minute commute. So time and value, people are looking at their options. The 14.8 million hours saved with E470, and this is just for 2016. If E470 did not exist, we would be looking at that many million hours that people would have spent in Colorado on other highways. So there's definitely a time savings. If you choose not to use it, that's okay. Thank the person next to you that did, because that's one less person that you're competing with in the general purpose lane. So the all-electronic tolling, express toll, and this is where we figured out there's some confusion in the marketplace. Can I use I-25? Can I use the Mountain Express lanes? Can I use US 36? All of this is governed under the umbrella of express toll. So express toll is the ability for people to purchase the ticket or the switchable transponder. You prepay your account. You can use it on all of the tolling facilities within Colorado. The I-25 Gap project is going to be starting up between Monument and Castle Rock. CDOT elected a managed lane as a solution. Colorado Springs is a little nervous. They don't understand how the tolling mechanism works, so we've got more education to do on that part of the state. We're going to go all the way up to Fort Collins eventually. I mean, the managed lane concept, again, it's a way to manage the congestion where people have the option to use the managed lane or stay in the general purpose lane. But it all falls under this express toll umbrella. So you're not getting a bill from CDOT. You're not getting a bill from the Mountain Corridor. You're not getting a bill from US 36. You're getting one bill under the express toll umbrella that E470, I want to say they're really the back office support for all of express toll. Real quick, and then I'll wrap it up here. The tolling facilities in Colorado, in the yellow, you see the areas soon to be under construction. I-70, we're looking at Tower Road all the way to I-25. C-470, they'll wrap up construction on that project down in Highlands Ranch next year. Obviously, the Northwest Parkway is the red segment, and we're waiting on Jefferson County to see if they're going to close the loop, eventually having that beltway all the way around the Denver metro region. But just showing you the express toll and how we're all interoperable for all of the people that choose to use express toll throughout Colorado. Roughly, again, I touched on this, the 1.6 million transponders that have been issued in Colorado, they can be used on all the highways. I don't know if you still have any of the big blocky T21s that were in the 90s. I know I had one. You can still use it if that's what you have, but the technology's been improved, and we'd like to phase all those out. And then the switchable transponder, that is CDOT's incentive for you to not be a single occupancy vehicle, but a high occupancy vehicle and ride for free if you have two people in your car. So the switchable transponder, you go from green to red and you don't pay. You may use the managed lanes for free with the switchable transponder. So again, a way to manage. With that, I touched on how we're the back office, the billing, collections, customer service, quality assurance, all under one roof. And just real quick, because I think these numbers tell such a big story about the transactions. Over 116 million in 2017. We serviced almost 1 million calls in the call center. We looked at over 73 million, I didn't, but somebody, license plate images. And then the express toll accounts were over 100,000 were opened in 2017. So I think the story and the key takeaways are it's not going away. It's just becoming more of a way of life. And we have a phenomenal customer service center. They're trained on every highway that we work with, 7 days a week. They have a 99.3% customer satisfaction rate, so they do a great job up in the customer service center. With that, I will wrap it up, open for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Mr. Teeter?
Thank you for the presentation tonight. I enjoyed it. I got a couple things for you. I don't know if you can answer this or not, but I'm going to try to give you a question. How do you handle your overweight vehicles and your oversized vehicles?
So we work with the Colorado Motor Carriers Association, and as far as they pay an additional toll for over 6 axles. As far as overweight, we don't have scales on the tollway. So as far as how we manage that, Councilmember Douglas, if you want to chime in and add to that, I can.
Yeah. Yes, it's just based on axle, because the more weight those vehicles can carry, they're going to have more wheels. So that's where they get tacked on.
I know that can be a hard question for you. We're discussing that right now, so I thought I'd throw it in your lap and see how you answered that. But I hope to see someday 270 through Commerce City as managed toll lanes added on there.
I'll make sure and take that back.
All right, is there any other questions from council at this time? I want to thank you for coming in. Very informative. Glad to see that we got some of the fees dropped in Adams County on license plate fees. And thanks to Councilman Douglas for his efforts with E470 as well.
And I do want to point out, are you on the roadway committee as well?
Yes.
Yeah, so beyond being on our board, they also dedicate, time that they come to these committee meetings and here, and Commerce City is always at the table. So we thank you for your dedicated service as a board member. So we were happy to come out tonight and help share the story.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right, Mr. McBroom, we're going to go into administrative council business. You want to introduce the revised letter from the council to District 14?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Ford. We did make a couple of minor adjustments to the letter based on comments at last Monday's study session, so I think it's ready for council action to authorize the mayor's signature.
All right, is there a motion for that signature? Mr. Hughesman.
Motion to approve your signature on the draft letter to the Adams County School District 14 Board of Education.
Okay, Mr. Madera.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Now, does any other council member have any administrative council business? Mr. Douglas?
Yes, thank you. While we were up in mountains for CML retreat, I had a phone call from a lady who lives over in Eagle Creek, and she was asking about the little train warning that comes on. She says that each time a train comes, the warning beeps out 27 times for each passing train, and I wasn't clear on how many times, what is the set amount that needs to go off each time that these trains come through there. And she says that she can't sleep at night, and very disruptive. And I told her that we went, each time we went to Washington, D.C., we spoke with the rail and indicated our issues with the silent crossing and the efforts that it took Congress to get that turned on. And it used to be the train come through there and blow up, and you could hear it for miles. Now we have a low decibel train warning that sounds like a train horn, but it's very low. And I just didn't understand, when she was explaining the noise level, because I've heard, a lot of people praising the fact that we did do something, and they do appreciate all the effort that Commerce City took to get that done. So I was going to ask if we could find out exactly how many times that train noise monitor goes off, and see if we can get some sort of report back.
Thanks, Steve. Mr. Hughesman.
Thank you, Mayor. I have 3 items that I wanted to bring up, if that's okay. First off, a couple weeks ago while we were in the mountains, it came to my knowledge that Commerce City charges use tax on nonprofit organizations that are established as 501c3 charitable organizations by the Internal Revenue Service. I'd like to move that the staff prepare an ordinance that would exempt these organizations from being subjected to any and all taxes collected by the City of Commerce City.
I'll make a motion.
Just a second. Mr. Sheasley,
Yes, Mayor.
your opinion?
Roughly stated, the council could take action to amend the sales and use tax code to grant additional exemptions. There are other methods to do that potentially, such as through a rebate that would not require an ordinance action. Before acting on it, I would recommend that council have their finance department evaluate whether there would be an impact on the base or any impact on our bonds, but that's an exemption that could be written into our code, but that is something, that statement is accurate. All construction, all use tax, regardless of the entity, government or nonprofit, is subject to taxation.
So then let me go back to Councilman Huseman. Would you be acceptable having the finance department put something together and find out what the best way to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish by knowing what the impact would be so that we have something to leverage against our decision?
Right, and that's kind of why I was ambiguous in the way I stated it as far as exempting organizations from tax collection, be it by amending the code or through rebates or whatever. Whatever is the best manner possible for the city, but I think there are charitable organizations within our community that do a lot of good, and to subject them to having to pay those taxes reduces their ability to do good within our city. And so I think it would behoove us to promote nonprofit organizations who are recognized by the IRS as 501c3 charitable organizations to not have to pay those taxes.
I appreciate what you're doing. I just want to make sure that we know what the best way to do it is. But I'm supportive of what you're saying.
Mayor Ford, as far as an ordinance or resolution, for example, our current economic development incentive structure is approved through a resolution that establishes a threshold below which incentives could be paid as far as rebates of fees and taxes. A similar structure without a threshold could be implemented easier than an ordinance through a resolution if that were the option, and that could probably be written and come back to a regular meeting with a evaluation of the impact. I would ask Mr. McBroom.
Certainly having the latitude is useful. Knowing what the intent is, we'll research it from a staff perspective, bring back the method we think would be the most effective for council action, but share with you what the other options are. While also, Councilman Huseman and I had discussed this last week, we are trying to pull information to try to understand what the financial impact would be. It's tricky for us to do because we don't log tax receipts based on the type of organization, so we're just having to go back manually and try to think through 501c3s that we know pulled building permits where they did pay use tax. So we should be able to have some information for you. What I shared with Councilman Huseman last week, I'm sure it's not an insignificant amount of money, but we're not talking about the amount of money that would impact our annual budget. It's a fairly small amount, though every dollar is precious. It's not the sort of amounts of money that would impact city operations.
Well, and bringing it up, I recall one major instance where we were dealing with a nonprofit, was the school district. And the school district, we donated the land for the new high school. The school district hired a contractor to come in and build the new high school. The contractor was not a nonprofit, so they were taxed based on the materials, and it really caused a rub with School District 14. And at that time, I told them, well, if you hired the billing agent and you guys did the work, did it through you, you wouldn't be taxed. But since you hired an outside company to do it, and everything's billed through them, we don't have a choice but to tax you. And so where I can see, if we were to do an ordinance and just say nonprofits don't pay a tax, we have charged 27J use tax on all their construction of their buildings over the years. because they hired outside companies to build those buildings, and the tax was billed to the companies that built the buildings, that pulled the permits, not the school district. Same with 14. So I want to make sure that however we do this, because people like CUP and those kind of folks shouldn't have to be paying a tax because of what it's to give back to the community. So I know where you're going. I just want to make sure that whatever we do is fair, because if we do something that would affect the school districts, then it has to be balanced equally to both. And so I just want to get advice from the staff on how it's best to do that so that we don't step on toes in the process. Brian?
And if I understand Mr. Huseman's intent, it is truly to look at a use tax exemption or rebate for nonprofit corporations, 501c3s, which would not include
Schools?
government agencies.
How about churches?
Like school district. Churches would be included
Right.
if they're true 501c3s.
Right, and we're going to have multiples of those coming in as well. And so if they hire an outside contractor to do the work, there's still that same scenario. And so what I was trying to get across isn't necessarily that it was the school district, but there's a scenario in how taxes are doled out based on who's building the building and who pulls the permits. And so how do we get some finite discussion about what exactly we're exempting and who can take benefit of that? Okay? All right, thank you. Next, Mr. Huseman.
Great.
I
In
think,
honor of,
if I might interrupt, I think Councilman Huseman introduced that as a motion. Did you intend it as a motion? I think you did.
well, I figured that it would take longer than an hour time for you guys to draft and to do all that research, and my understanding is that anything over an hour's worth of city staff time requires a motion and approval by the council to direct them to do that work.
Right, so on a situation like that, then it's just a request to have the staff do the background to bring back. And if you did say you wanted to make a motion, then I need you to remove your motion if that's your true desire.
So remove the motion to do the action, but put forth a motion for the city staff to make recommendations and do the research required for this proposal.
Perfect. Do you need support from the council on that?
I believe Mr. Huseman's entered it as a motion, so support and action would be
All right.
great.
Is there a second to the staff looking into Mr. Huseman's concern? Mr. Teeter?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That motion is carried, and staff will do some research and get back with us. All right, Mr. Huseman, what's next?
Thank you. In honor of National Park and Recreation Month, as well as our nation's birthday coming up on Wednesday, I'd like to look at changing the fee structure for the Commerce City Rec Centers and Paradise Island Pool to allow all active duty military members and their families who reside within Commerce City, as well as Guard and Reserve members who are serving on active orders, to have free access to the rec centers and the Paradise Center Pool. Additionally, I'd also like to include any veteran who resides in Commerce City that has a combined VA disability rating greater than or equal to 50% in that rule, just for them, not their family members, though.
Mr. McBrone, you want us to do that by motion now, or do you want to do some research, see what that's going to take too?
Well, that's entirely up to City Council.
All right.
I think it'll be a hard thing for us to analyze, quite honestly.
I do too.
My initial thought is that it would not significantly impact our revenue.
And I'm very supportive of it. I'll make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Madera?
Second.
I have a motion, a second to, I don't want to have to restate the whole thing, but for active duty and, I can't hear you.
Sorry. It'll be for active duty military and their family members, immediate family members, as well as Guard and Reserve members who are currently serving on active orders, and then any veteran who has a combined VA disability rating greater than or equal to 50%, and they should have to bring in a letter from the eBenefits website indicating that that is their rating, and that should be within, a month or so, in order to be proven that that is truly their rating, because ratings do fluctuate based on reviews by the Veterans Administration.
Just a quick clarification. Are you meaning to refer to residents who are in those categories?
Yes, Commerce City residents only.
Commerce City residents only that meet those qualifications. I do have a motion and a second on the floor. Mr. Attorney.
May I ask one more clarifier? For the Guard and Reserve members on active orders, did that include their families as well, or just the member?
Yes, would include their family as well. I think of the Fryendall family who lives in my neighborhood who's was deployed and the family members left behind, and I think it would be great if we supported those family members by giving them some recreation opportunities.
All right. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. All right,
Thank you.
Mr. Huseman, last but not least.
Last one, this is more directly towards city manager. We discussed previously the speed limit on Tower Road, and one of the explanations for the fact that it was lowered from the original speed limit before the widening project down to 45 miles an hour was because future use and traffic patterns on that road. I'd like to ask that we look at raising that back up to the 55 miles an hour that it was before, given the fact that we probably are not going to see any development out in that corridor for a little bit of time. There's no sense in having it at 45 miles an hour for that time being, and then it could be lowered back down if traffic warrants at a later date.
Mr. McBroom.
Let me make sure I understand. Did you say Highway 2 or Tower Road?
Tower Road.
Tower Road with the nice safety improvements with the medians and everything that were not there before when it was a two-lane road but had a 55 mile an hour speed limit.
Actually, I don't think the speed limit was 55,
You
but
know,
we can check
it
that.
was 55 miles an hour up until E470 decided to come through that area of our community with an agreement with E470. That speed limit had to be dropped to 45 miles an hour to entice people to utilize the tollway and to not use it as competition to the tollway for a certain amount of time. And the same was with the ramp installation.
40.
Was it dropped to 40?
Yeah.
So it was dropped to 40 when E470 come in, and I don't know as though it has been increased or reduced from that point since.
I know my GPS in my vehicle tells me it's a 50 mile an hour speed limit, so there's some fluctuation there. I do know whenever the 96th Avenue interchange was put up, there was a temporary reduction to 45 miles per hour with orange flags out there because that intersection had some issues. So I think the speed has fluctuated based on where you were on the road, but given its nice engineering that went into it and the beautiful work done by Flatiron Construction, I think it would easily support a 55 mile an hour speed limit.
Mr. Douglas.
Yes. And I'd like to also put in there for Highway 2, you know, we just had Cheryl from E470 come in and give us a history, a brief history on E470 and what they're doing. And looking at our service level as far as road and Tower Road and Highway 2, we were at a level F in the morning and in the afternoon, the worst it could be. And now I see our levels being A and B. I mean, I really don't see any disruption. Traffic moves very freely. I've been down on both sides at all times, and I have not yet seen bumper to bumper. So I would ask for an increase between Quebec up to 120th from 45 to 55.
Brian?
My request of council would be to direct us to perform speed studies on both roads. Though not an expert, I know there are some traffic engineering principles for how to set speeds so that they're legally defensible and consistent with the design speed of the road. Both roads can probably support that speed, but it might be good to have us do an updated speed study now that we've completed work on both roads, just to make sure we don't set the speed at an inappropriate level.
I know I get a lot of residents that are asking me why Highway 2, you widened it, you made this nice road, now it's reduced in speed. I also point out the fact that it's no longer a state highway. It's Commerce City Road, and so based on our data and new speed studies, I would be interested. But I could tell you when even coming to City Hall tonight, I'm going 45, 50. People are just blowing by me. So people are complaining to me about getting tickets on Highway 2 because they were doing 65. And it's like, well, okay. But we should figure out what the right speed should be based on a new study, and then be able to, for us as council, to defend whatever the speed needs to be on those roads. So I'm supportive of that study as well. Mr. Madera.
Yeah, I'd like to move to have staff perform a speed study for Highway 2 and Tower Road and come back with your recommendation.
Mr. Hughesman.
Second that motion.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Yes, sir.
And I've also heard concerns about the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit south of Quebec Parkway. So I would propose that speed study go from 72nd Avenue north on Highway 2. I'm not sure if that was the intent, but that's what I would
Is
recommend.
that acceptable to the motion maker?
Yes,
And
thank
the
you.
second? All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion's carried. Now, any other administrative council business? I do have one item. Former Mayor Pro Tem, current State Senator Dominic Moreno has asked me to give him a recommendation, a civic recommendation to approach the District 14 School Board to fill a vacancy and be eligible to fill that vacancy. He needs to have a civic recommendation and a professional recommendation. I told him that I would do the civic recommendation, and to do so, I want to get council's approval for me to sign the letter with a recommendation letter for him to apply for that position for the vacancy on District 14. Mr. Hughesman?
I'd like to make a motion that in your official capacity as mayor that you provide a civic recommendation letter to State Senator Moreno for appointment to the Adams 14 School District Board.
Mr. Teeter?
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. I will make sure he gets a signed letter. I don't know if there was one in the packet, but I'll look to make sure. Any other administrative council business before I move on? Seeing none, we'll go to reports. Mr. McBroom.
We did send out the city manager update on Thursday. There were updates related to the Derby Downtown District and our Catalyst Funds program, including the form to request Catalyst funds, an update on the Quality Community Foundation Golf Tournament, and our weekly oil and gas update. I would note there were no new state applications received by the city over the past week. And then the final item, though not listed in the report, I understand from Deputy City Manager Smith, this was the first night that the City Council meeting was broadcast live on Channel 8. So we have a team of folks here making sure that it's going smoothly, and as I understand it is going smoothly. So this is the first night that the City Council meeting has been broadcast on Channel 8 as our own channel now. So
Thanks.
one final note, I'd mentioned earlier in the meeting with moving the oil and gas presentations to August 13th, the challenge we have with the July 9 study session agenda, we actually have quite a few study session agenda topics in the queue. If you look at the work schedule, the challenge is we don't have them ready to publish in the packet this week for a meeting on July 9. And given the holiday on Wednesday, we have some folks that are taking some time off. So rather than rush items onto an agenda and maybe not be as prepared as I would like us to be, I would actually propose that we cancel next Monday's study session.
All right, is there a motion to cancel next Monday's study session? Don't all jump at the opportunity at once. Mr. Teeter?
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. I'd like to make a motion to cancel next Monday night's study session.
Mr. Douglas?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Oh, you have discussion? I have a question. Will we still be able to come for dinner? Nope, you're on your own.
Mr. Sheasley's reminding me that the vending machines will all be operational next Monday evening.
That's corn dog night.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. All right, Mr. Attorney.
I just wanted to report on a U.S. Supreme Court ruling from last week that'll have impact on city operations and city staff. It was Janus versus AFSCME, which I believe was an Illinois case. There's a concept of fair share contributions for union members. where if you're not a member of the union, but the union bargains on behalf of you as an employee of an organization, you can be required to contribute to some of that organization's ongoing costs. The Supreme Court struck down that requirement in Illinois, which has a broader application, and so will affect the two bargaining units in Commerce City to some extent. So I'm working with management to make sure that we address that, and we've received communications from AFSCME already to assist in that. So just so council's aware of, there's a rather large decision overturning about 40 years of understood precedent. So
All right,
that was
thank
my
you.
report.
Councilwoman Elliott, you have something?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few announcements. I do want to announce that we're having our Music in the Park series kick off this Thursday, Pioneer Park from 6 to 8 p.m. And each Thursday from here till the 26th of the month. So next week it'll be at South Lawn Park, so alternating Pioneer and South Lawn Park. So I hope to see many of you out there. Also, just to follow up, we had our Emergency Services Task Force meeting last week, and Judge Juarez had presented a program that the City of Loveland has, I can't remember how many years this has been in effect. Troy, do you remember? At least a couple of years? Year and a half. And so there was a link, if you all received the meeting request, there was an attachment with a link and has more information, but it's called the Jumpstart Program. And from what I understand, that Judge Juarez was a strong proponent in this and had made several attempts in putting this together piecemeal over the years, whereas not to necessarily sentence or jail what do you want to call it? I don't want to say criminals, but anyway, to put them in a program where they actually, not so much community service, but they actually better themselves by getting a driver's license, attempt to get a job, things like that. And so without too much more information, I would rather you look at the link. There's a nice article in the Loveland paper. And Judge Juarez was very methodical with everything that he presented to us at our meeting last week. And before that, actually, City Manager Rick Broom and I were invited to attend a meeting with Commissioner O'Dorisio and a few members of Adams County DA's office looking at the possibility of a family justice center. And so this would house a number of things that what we've talked about in the emergency task force meeting. And so this could very well be a partnership that we're looking for and working towards. So just kind of an FYI, this was our initial meeting, so I just wanted to let everyone know. If you're interested at any time, you're always welcome to attend. And we have some tours that are scheduled here in the next few weeks. I know myself and City Manager Broom and Deputy City Manager Smith are planning to attend, and so we will definitely, or I will definitely bring back information of these facilities that we've been invited to tour. That is it. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank the residents of Commerce City for allowing the City Council to attend the CML conference week before last. Very informative. My understanding is everyone on council was up there at one point or another taking advantage of information. We had the Public Works Touch a Truck event while CML was going on, so I don't think it was probably heavily attended by the City Council. However, hopefully the event went well and residents took advantage of being able to go and visit our Public Works Department. I did have lunch with Mark Campbell and some of his investors, looking at doing some more with his development at 104th and Chambers. I want to thank Rick. He attended the ACC meeting, and it wasn't an easy one, but appreciate Rick going to the ACC meeting, as I had to be to Rotary early last Wednesday. They went through the process, and I am now the president of Commerce City Rotary.
Congratulations.
I want to, thank you, I want to remind our residents that fireworks are illegal in Commerce City. The City Council did pass a new mandatory fine of $500 if you get caught on your first offense, $750 if you get caught a second time. and not that we want to discourage people from enjoying Independence Day, but please come out and enjoy the fireworks that are professionally done over at Dick's Sporting Goods Park, and enjoy the free events that take place, and enjoy the fireworks with your family, and have a great holiday. And that's all I have. Mr. Douglas, you have something to add?
Yes. Wanted to thank City Council for allowing me to participate in infrastructure committee that I'm on National League of Cities. And also thank you to the citizens for allowing me to serve in this capacity. Friday, June 22nd, I came down the mountain, our last day of our CML, and I attended the Transform commute presentation over at 61st and Pena, and they were talking about the future of the roads in Colorado. It was a great presentation. The following week, I attended my Transportation Infrastructure Committee. We went to Little Rock, Arkansas, and I tell you, I did a lot of walking and riding buses there, just looking at all the different things they have going on there. Prior to that, on Monday, I'm also on the First Tier Suburb Council, and we talked about retail. We had a presentation from ICSC about the impact of not only the internet retail, but a lot of these companies have started up on the retail, on the internet side, and now they're actually doing a lot of brick and mortar. So that is coming back, and she gave an example of one company called Untucked Shirts for Men, really popular company that makes untucked shirts for men. Well, this year they're going to next year they're going to open up 28 brick and mortar companies because their line has been so popular. Then the rest of the week, spend the other part of Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday talking about transportation. Regional MPOs, which is it's a metropolitan committees. Ours is being Dr. Cog. There's 4 other committees along underneath that MPO. Talk about autonomous vehicles, drones. We had a very good drone demonstration. And, most people think of drones as toys at first. Now these are used to use as inspection on bridges. We went to one of the bridges. They have like 6 of them over there. We went down and to look at from Department of Transportation with Arkansas. They did a demonstration with this drone, and this drone is about $6,000. Really good sized drone, and the camera, as far as what it can pick up, the resolution is so crystal clear. I mean, you could be 40 feet away and you could read the label on a soup can. And then it was windy that day, so that drone stayed stable no matter which way the wind was blowing. It did not move. And just showing the abilities of what these drones can do. We talked about first responders with drones, issues around airports, because we've talked about drones, but really haven't talked about implementing any kind of ordinance around that. And I think we really should here in the near future. The ability that I know our police department uses drones. And talking about local control. Also in a first tier city, I sat next to a gentleman. He's on Arkansas Municipal League, and he said they were very frustrated with their school district that they decided to do a municipal school district, which is the first in the state. I talked to a gentleman who lives he's a council member in Sparks, Nevada, and where our increase in our property tax goes up, and as far as being assessed and what the city collects, they have, it's a reverse. It's instead of appreciation, it's a disappreciation of the value, and they can only go up 3% a year. So their revenue drops, and they can only recover at 3% a year, which is crazy. We talked about rail, brought up the issue about early warning on our tracks, and they are working on some pilot programs in a couple cities. Talked about spaceports. Yeah, all these things to do with transportation, and spaceports part of that. We talked about Adams County, what they wanted to do. Talked a little bit about workforce housing and housing in general. And then all the other advocacies that were there as well were based on community economic development, which Paulo's on, energy, environmental, natural resources, financial, administrative and intergovernment relations, human development, information technology and communication, public safety and crime prevention, and then, of course, transportation infrastructure service. Then on Friday, it was an all-day session on discussion around disruption, and then how to lead as far as being a elected official around disruptive things that are happening in our world. I participated. I just went as a council member to support families that have been separated. There was an event that was held down at Civic Center in Denver, and I participated in that as well. But like I said, I really appreciate the council support. I'm ongoing efforts on being on the infrastructure transportation.
All right, thanks, Steve. Now we'll move to our last item on our agenda, which is an executive session. I'm open for a motion to enter into that executive session. Mr. Teeter?
I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to CRS 24-6-402, parentheses 4, parentheses B, for the purpose of receiving legal advice regarding potential litigation arising from the opioid crisis and the selection of outside counsel.
Thank you. Mr. Madera?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. We'll be in executive session. When we come out of executive session, we will come back in here and close out the council meeting.